time I come. It's not a big deal to get extra ones.
Well, you guys have got food. Food's today.
Smells delicious.
We did a easy one today. I remembered like, oh, I got a fun lunch, I forgot about lunch, so we did what they all, it's just fruit, vegetables, meat trays and other things.
Sends out really fast.
Yeah. Definitely. Maybe or wasn't it qualified super? You are.
Yeah, and I love this because it records it and then takes like the AI notes and I send it right out to everybody.
Oh, where did you get that?
It's called Otter is what it is. It's, well, this is just off of Amazon, but Otter, it's like a free Zoom service that you can add to it. So it will take everything that's like talked about and put it into like meeting notes and it will send it out later to everyone who wants it. So it's nice. But it's flipped, so I gotta figure out how to flip the camera so it's not.
Makes it easier for.
Well, that, and it's nice because if anyone asks to have like the video later, they can. There we go.
Last month's meeting, my auto, mail is not syncing with my.
So last month's meeting was June
You know what, it'll work.
17th.
You get your first check in.
So I'm trying to find the one that I sent for last month's meeting. I have a question for you. Why do people think that?
He gets 2 to 3 guys are all. And then each they have maybe one office.
I'm not ready to. How are you?
Yes.
Good, how are you? It's going to eat. Man, I feel like I haven't seen everybody in forever because I haven't seen Stan.
I know, it's where I was gonna actually, I'm looking to be here today. I'm sure you're so busy.
It's been.
There's a lot of events in the summer.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and then what they do is they do it for a year and then after a year, well, I think you can have it for up to 2, but after that, then they. Cause it's kind of like the starting point, so.
Oh, nice.
Oh, we have 4, sweet. I'll have to take names after and put them down.
Do you have people message you about it or RSVP or yeah?
We put it on there, but no one. Yeah, it's hard. It's.
Videos.
I think so. I think I'm gonna just do a Vimeo is what I'm gonna do and just do the free version and just put it on there and then make it password protected. So then when somebody asks for a password, I can count it as
Oh,
like
okay.
them watching it. So.
So when you do racquetball,
Did she do what?
did she do softball? Racquetball?
Yeah, that's all right. I just feel sad because I'm like, so much for girls, like, how do I make it like her that have the same opportunities, you know? So, I don't know.
Is she gonna still do dance?
Yeah, well, maybe one more. She's interested.
I know you said that she can't.
She likes to tumble and be powerful and I think dance is for her. She doesn't want to be like.
Oh, okay.
Floating. Okay, well, we're gonna get started because I've got 5 out there and 4 in here, so. Thanks for coming to Women in Business for July. Make sure you guys have signed in. I'll take them around the computer and I'll put them into here. And then we're also gonna do a little drawing today for everyone that's on here. So we've got some future gift cards that we're gonna be giving away as well. And then at the end, we will talk about what to do for an August meeting. But I'm gonna introduce you guys to Ground Up Solutions. I will let them do their presentation and we are recording it. So if you guys ever need the recording back, you can have that and those watching live can also keep it as well, so. Yeah. You guys-
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay,
We got-
perfect. Just making sure we'll pull this up.
We get quite a.
So if there's questions and stuff off of Zoom.
I will let you know. Yep, yep, I'll sit right here and let you know. It turned off all of it.
There it is. All right. So just as an introduction, I know we know some of you, but just I'm Shiloh, this is Shiloh. So, our last name is Money. We moved here about 6 years ago now from South Texas. Little background on myself, I raised in South Texas and had a couple of different businesses and bought and sold a handful of businesses ranging from the Daylight Donuts here that we had a few years ago and sold it to Farm Creek Meats about 18 months ago or so. Had some diesel mechanic businesses, forklift dealerships, power generation, bunch of stuff in the oil field, all sorts of things, and a property management company as well that we still own in Texas. And Junior hasn't had as much work experience other than next to me and doing things that have been somewhat treated like a rented mule to a degree as a kid. But he's recently come home from Brazil and got married a few months ago, so it's been fun to work with him and my other son who's not here, he's out in Consensus today. He's doing that in Vernon, so but we had a business in Texas that did merchant services, and so more than anything, not that it's inherently a sales pitch, it's just, we feel like when we go talk to people, most people don't know much about merchant services. They know that it's there and they have to have it, but feel like they have to in the world we live in today. But understanding that is, it's hard, for lack of a better word, to go through. You look at your statement and everybody makes a statement that looks differently. We'll go over some statements, we won't take a lot of time today. That other questions we can definitely answer them, but that's kind of us and why this makes a difference, you know, is as we look at your businesses and you all look at what you're making off your business and you look at your bottom line. Merchant services a lot of times can cut, you know, 20% pretty quickly, just right off of any income that you would make. And so it is important to look at that stuff when you think about the monies that you're making or not making, right? And you think, man, 3 more % would be nice, right? Or 1 or 2%. And so That's why we feel like it makes a difference and it's worth the time to look at and what that's gonna mean to you, whether you're our client or not, it's gonna make a difference, all of them can be looked at. And evaluated a little bit, so.
But yeah, so the next question, are all processors the same? And the big thing is no, they're not. So we put three little points right here that we think are very, all processors have these three. So the customer service, which, just with your businesses and things like that, your sales rep, are you getting the customer service that you deserve? This is in fact that, when you have a problem, are you texting or calling them or are you on the phone yourself over, 2 hours a day of your time, that could be spent elsewhere. Dealing with customer service and problems you have with your credit card, and those business owners, I don't want to be messing with that. So that's one thing, our process, so they're not, customer service is a huge one. And industry specific software, like so here, right there, Clover, Clover's a huge one, Ovation, Simple Swipe, like Square, all those kind of things. Just for example, if you have retail, why would you get something that has something to do with sticks? Like, this doesn't make sense, right? So get something that's very specific for you. And I'll tell you right now, there's a billion different companies. I guarantee they have one that's perfect for 90 of your company, right? It's out there, but you just gotta do your homework, and sadly, sifting through a million different companies it isn't me, right? So that's where coming in, like customer service, you call somebody up and ask, hey, what do you offer? What can you help me with? And then the last bit for processors is your contract. So an average contract that we've seen is about 3 years. So if somebody comes along and asks you, hey, do you want to do a contract with me? They're like 5 to 7 years, that might be a little bit of a red flag. So just or there are contracts, like I know we do this and a couple other companies do this because it gives y'all liberty as business owners to pick and choose where we don't have contracts, right? And there's a lot of other companies that do that. So if I was as a business owner, that's very appealing to me, not having a contract, not being held down by anything. Especially, once you sign and afterwards it happens more than not, is they read the fine print and there's, oh, hey, by the way, you have this fee, but you already signed, so you're stuck in the 3 to 5 year contract. And most contracts do have a way you can back out. Usually it's, you have to pay for your processor, which is a couple $100, and then you have to pay for your equipment, which is a couple $100. So it's sometimes they're expensive to get out, but it might be worth it if you're in bad contracts with somebody, right? So yeah, all processors are not the same. There's these three that I would, these 3 items that I would look for. And honestly, a fourth option to look into, which comes in with the contract, is your rate. What is the rate you're getting, and is that good for you and your company, right? We're gonna talk about this in a second, but there are different things you can do, like y'all seen, I'm sure, like, well, why are you charging me 3% of this place, whatever it is, right? Those are different items, yeah, tiers exactly of card processing that y'all can, look into and see if it's good for your business somehow. Yeah.
So, any questions so far about some of that? No, some of it's kind of self-explanatory, and it seems that way, but, for instance, on the contracts, one of the things about that, like we've recently talked to a customer that they wanted to get out, and they're with Clover, and we sell Clover too, we do Clover and those kind of things, and we think she likes her device, she likes all the things that it does. But she signed up with Clover and their processor, again, somebody like us who came in that, for me, I feel like it's just unscrupulous, said, hey, you know what, we'll get you the best equipment and it's gonna cost you $150 a month. And she said, okay, I can afford that, I guess it's okay. Because you're just, you go on the internet, you go to, it's information that fires, right? And so then you just get tired of it and you hope the guy that walked in is trustworthy enough, right? Well, she's in a 4-year contract that's separate just for her equipment. And that equipment, if we were to sell that to her just outright, is around $750. Well, by the time she's done in 4 years, she's got 2 locations, she's gonna be just shy of $15,000. For equipment, then in the next year or two, it's actually gonna be outdated. And she's stuck in that. We've looked through the contract, she was getting out if I can. We've done through it, we've sent it to other people that we do business with, and said, is there a way out of this? And they're like, nope, she can just keep paying for it. So she's still, luckily, she's still looking at it because we're gonna lower her rates. She's like, well, if I have to pay for it anyway, if I can get lower rates, at least I'm saving a little bit. Right, but in the end, she's gonna be just shy of 15 grand in 4 years for equipment that, you know, if she would have just written a check, it would have been less than 2 grand for both locations. So it's hard, so we get that, and that, you know, when we come to places, people are like, I don't want to deal with it, because I've already dealt with you, right? Not inherently us, right, but people like, and so we get that, and that's hard. And so that's why looking at those processors and understanding is takes some time. So your statements and your fees and things of that nature, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And the actual cost of running the cards, because so many times, and you can look online, they'll tell you, you know, you can find, oh, it's 1.2%, it's 1.5%, it's 2%, different things like that. Rarely is that the actual cost. Right, and so we're gonna kind of explain why I understand your statement. Most people think you do have to be Einstein or Einstein, they just don't figure it out. And I will tell you that when we get statements, here's an example statement, we'll go through parts of it. There are statements that we get that are so bland, and you probably looked at other statements as well. There's just not enough information there to really figure out what you're looking at, right? Or there's so much information that you're not sure the math. And so we kind of wanted to go over some of that in looking at it. So most of the time, there will never be typically on your statement that says this is exactly what you're paying. You know, like here it says on that where it says base rate right underneath the C, it says 1.69% is the base rate. But if you take the 49,469, which is your total, which is the total amount that this person has processed for the month, and then take the 1,622 right next to C there, which is the amount deducted, it actually comes out to just over 3%, right? And so, and that's to me the best way to figure out your true rate, right? They're going to say, well, it's 1.69%. Well, sure, but now you start adding in all these other fees, it's really not. And so that's the problem, is so many people will sell that, and that's really not, it doesn't end up being the true rate, for a lot of different reasons. One of the things on this one is as an example, we'll talk about it later, that you'll see is most of the time, this fee section is probably double that length. You know, as you go through, and there's a lot of different reasons for that. And the last thing that we talk about is how to save money. We'll talk about some of those fees and how you can avoid those fees that a lot of times exist. But when you're looking at your statement, you know, I know y'all probably are looking at this. Have y'all all seen your credit card statements? Or how many of you feel like you understand it?
I hope so.
To me, the biggest way the best thing to understand is to take that 162216 and divide it by the full number to give you, this is really what I'm paying, right? I mean, you know, that's what they pulled out of your bank account, right? But to give you that percentage rate so you can make comparisons when you want to make comparisons.
Let me tell you, me and my brother can figure out you guys are miles ahead.
But then looking at all these fees, and when you look at your own statements, looking at these fees, but a lot of those fees end up getting put in there because they're things that you don't inherently have to pay for. They're going to be things because you're out of compliance in some fashion or something that has occurred through your monthly processing that ends up popping up on there. So going and calling your processor and saying, hey, why is this here? We need to back this out, or I want to make sure if they can't back it out, what can we do to make sure it doesn't happen next month, right? Or these are my current rates, you told me it was gonna be 1.69%, but it's really 3, right? Because I can do the math, right? That's simple. I don't know, 6th, 7th grade math at most, right? So what can you do to change my fees? And we have people that we go, we talk to, and they're like, I don't wanna mess with it, isn't it, and I get that. And then, in fact, we were talking to Steve the other day, just down the road here at the, All Star Electric, and then he said, well, hold on a second, he calls his processor while we're sitting there, and the processor said, yeah, I can lower your rates. You know, I wasn't inherently happy for us, because he's like, I don't have to deal with this, right, I just got my rates lowered, right? But at the same time, well, why not, right, making that phone call, if you can get through to somebody, right, and that's the hard part, and, you know, sometimes when you're using just different processors, you might get some guy in Bangladesh. It's okay, not knocking that, it just doesn't give you the same kind of customer service support that you're not going to get otherwise. From other processors, so don't be afraid to call people and say, hey, I need something better, I'm gonna make a change. Right, it doesn't hurt to ask those things. And we're like everybody else in this group, we rather say, I'm not gonna mess with that, you're here, come and do business with us, but I recognize that that's not reality, right? That all of the basin is going to use Groundback Solutions as their emergency service provider, so. Any questions about statements or?
Not about statements, but someone asked what your processing rates are.
So, we are gonna talk
Okay,
about that in
deal.
just a second.
Deal.
Because it'll make more sense, because that is a question that we get a lot, what your rates? And there are so many different ways to skin that cat, for lack of a better word, and Shana's gonna talk about that in a second, because it depends on what you need, on how that ends up looking, so. So we will answer that.
Perfect.
So on the rate part, so you see on processing, it says cash discount, surcharge, bill pricing, and it says all similar with small variances. So anytime you go into a store and you're getting charged that 3%, 4%, whatever it may be, it is one of those systems that it's using, right? And you can see here the interchange plus, that is kind of the bread and butter, I guess you could say, for credit card processing. That's about what everybody uses. But slowly getting more to cash discount stuff, because it's expensive, we understand, right? Credit card, 3% of your business, right? Is all going to credit card stuff. You might say, well, I want to put it on the customer because I'm kind of screwed with that. So it just depends on what you want. But on the interchange side, those rates, we don't have a set in stone thing, because I'll tell you, right, everybody's different, right? You might have a company that, well, I only process $10,000, right? Well, I have a company that processes $100,000, so your rates can be very different, and it depends on what types of cards you have. So,
Okay. Talking about that, so one of the things about, and for the gal who's watching. Interchange Plus amounts to Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, all of them. They have a base rate of what they call interchange. And so they're gonna charge based on what they feel like the security of the card, the reward system of a card. I mean, there's lots of different things and the amount that's normally processed. So they don't charge a flat fee. It is a range that they charge. So the reason why there are companies who will say, well, Square, for instance, right? They'll say, well, we just charge. Last time I looked, it's just under 3%, 2.89 or something like that. I don't know exactly what it was. They do that, so they cover the spread in all of them. And so one of the things that we try to do is, unless we're doing a cash discount or surcharge, which would be a flat 3%, it's almost impossible to say, we'll just charge this, because we're trying to cover the spread. That's one reason why when we go in and visit with people, we say, well, give me your last month's statement or two months, so we can see on average what type of cards are coming in. So like for instance, in my wallet, I have a United Explorer card, right? I get points for that. United is not magnanimous, and they don't love Shiloh. They don't give me points because I'm just a nice guy and I like to fly United. actually got that because at the time Vernal, you guys know, was going back to Texas. But what they do is they charge, because that's a rewards card, they charge whoever I use that card with an extra fee so that they can pay me the reward. So thank you, Maverick Market, or whoever, right? They're the ones, the merchants, you get stuck with that, right? You know, Capital One is not nice enough to say, I'm gonna give you cash back. They're not giving you anything. They're taking that from somebody else and giving it. And so even those cards, they cost more. So that interchange base rate goes up based on that card. That's one reason why debit cards are the lowest, because you can't use it unless there's cash to back it up. And one of the highest is going to be if somebody comes in, it's a corporate card. So let's say I give him the Brown Ducks credit card and he goes to Vengeance and says, yeah, I'm gonna go buy $2,500 worth of stuff. My dad just fired me. So I was fired, right? He charges it. There's very little that I can do. Other than, you know, the risk is just that much higher, right? So for the credit card company saying, well, the risk is higher. It's a corporate card. We're not giving all those cards don't go to the owner, right? They go to various employees. That risk is higher. And so that interchange rate just keeps going up. So those car companies that say, hey, we just charge a flat fee of 2, 3, 4%, whatever it is, it's because they're covering that spread and they're hoping that, you know, they've got actuary tables that tell them, we've got enough people who've charged at this rate that we're going to make quite the difference on that, because there's going to be plenty of people who still use the debit card or still use just their own personal credit card, and that's how that works. So, so most of the time, it's probably a little more than you want, but that's one reason why they're so hard to understand when you look at statements. They just don't make sense, because it seems like the numbers are continually moving. And they are, because every card is gonna be charged differently. So it is difficult. So I hope that answers.
I'm sure,
your
yeah.
question. But when people do want a flat rate, that's where you go to the cash discount, surcharge, and dual pricing. Where you go into a place and they've got the little sticker that says, you know, if you charge this, if you use a card, it's gonna be a 3% fee added on top of it. Right, and that's one of those, and those are all, like I said, they're very similar. Surcharging is only, there's like 4 or 5 states that's not allowed in. There's some different things with those, but they're all very similar. But they're set up.
So it counters, right, someone using that points back card, that's how you counter it, I guess you could say, instead of the business getting charged for it, well, then they're just paying for their own convenience using the card. Yeah, so you have the flat rate, like you said, is very, you know, like Square, just put the 2.89 on all cards, and then they think they'll make up the difference in the long run. And the ACH invoicing, those are a little bit different depending on your business, right? Most retail places are not gonna have that. ACH for checks. You still have to spend money to get money or send money, I know. And then you have invoicing, which I would assume all of y'all are pretty familiar with, like QuickBooks. You know, you do your, it's just so easy to do it. It's only easier than that. Like, you know, I work on your motorcycle. All right, buddy, yeah, I'm sending you an invoice from QuickBooks. It's $500. Then, you know, they can pay online, or they can come in and pay that, whatever it may be, right? And then your last one is going to be your integration. Integration is huge. You know, all companies are different and you all have different needs. And for example, QuickBooks, a lot of companies use QuickBooks. Well, it's annoying to have a separate system like Square, for example. You have to take all your information from Square and type it in manually into QuickBooks, right? It'd be way easier if there was just a flat integration where you didn't have to do that, right? And there are different companies out there that integrate people very seamlessly. So you know, you just gotta find out what you want, and QuickBooks is a huge one, so there are hundreds of companies that integrate with that. So you're not having to spend basically double each one thing or 2 different things, QuickBooks and Square for example. And then, you know, what's my need? So if you have a company that's only doing, you know, you have very small items, like say $100 or less, you know, people aren't gonna throw a fit if you're doing cash discount, you know, putting the percentage back on them. But, you know, once you start getting into a. You know, construction company, for example, that does $10,000, $20,000 bids and stuff like that. Putting 3% on that, you know, if you've already done, hey, buddy, guy, you know, I don't know if I want to do this. So then that's where you gotta find your needs, what your customers want, what they like. So that's why there's different things like interchange plus, or, you know, putting the percentage back on the customer. And then you have equipment, I'm sure y'all seen it, there's. Good chilling things and more thing. I'm gonna tell you right now, they're quite literally all the same, just with a different sticker on it. So don't feel like one's just amazingly better than the others. It's not, you know what I mean, but there
Our
are.
software's background might be
It's-
different, but the interface on it, the equipment itself, a lot of them.
It's the same.
We've got some that are through a company called Ovation that we deal with in Clover, and you put the devices next to each other. And they're both made by a company called PAX. And they both say PAX, and then they have a Ovation sticker on it and a Clover sticker.
So if someone has a Clover device, they can like. That's just the device. They can use you essentially like Brown Duck Solutions, or is it separate devices?
Oh, you're talking about.
So like if they've already, so like I'm now thinking, because we were just talking about it for a second, like my parents own High Country Pizza and Deli, and I know they have the Clover machines. But I know how annoyed they get with like you said, all the things happening. Like if they were to be like, okay, we would love to use Brown Duck Solutions, is that something they can keep those machines, or is it a whole new?
So sadly, because of the industry, they have decided that every time you switch over processors, you have to get a new machine,
Okay.
right? Because they want a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
Right,
So
okay,
10 years ago, that was a different story. You could go in and even Clover devices when they first started. But almost everybody, you could go into the back side of that machine, you know. Not literally the back side of it, the software of it, and just reprogram. And they all now are proprietary, where they lock them down, where if you have it like Farm Creek Meats, for instance, they've got. Well, at the I'd say it's Farm Creek Meats, the Bluebell store, Farm Creek owns them now, but I think they have four or five different devices that cost them, just as they've changed people. For whatever reason, they have a problem with it, but
Yeah.
they just, I don't know.
okay,
So, yeah, there's nothing but sadly, or weekly, or else.
Yeah.
Just be reprogrammed, but stuff,
Yeah, yeah, because it would save everybody money. Right?
Yeah.
Just the process would be better.
it's just like the SIM cards on your phones that used to be. That's what it makes me think of. You could get a new phone, just
Well-
change the SIM card.
Little button on the side.
Uh-huh.
And what Steve's most of that equipment is a couple $1,000s, so every time, you know, and that's why it's such a big headache to switch over, we
Yeah.
understand that, because. Well, I don't wanna cough up $30,000 every time I switch over, just to save a couple bucks.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
it takes 6 months to recoup it, or
Yeah.
a year or something like that, right? So, I mean, a lot of times though, on that equipment, with us and some other processors, I even think, depending on the amount that's being processed, they'll absorb the cost of that equipment. So that's what we do a lot of times. It's just absorb the cost of the equipment, figure, you know what, this is a long-term relationship. People are gonna eat it more or less for 6 months, and then at some point, Brown has to start making money off of it.
Mhm.
Right, so.
And you know, your equipment needs, it just varies on what you need, right? If you, there's a lot of. Like salons that we deal with, you know, they have fancy, you know, POS systems, have all that stuff. They just literally need something where people can schedule and then take a little, you know, a little mobile reader, right, a little square thing, that's all they need. So it just depends really on what you need, point of sale, that's good for like retail shops. Where you can go in and put in your inventory, you have your virtual ones where people call over the phone, just turn the card, it's real simple, or you have your desktop, which is. That big one up there, which is. Almost all places have that. And you just have to look at the cost and value, you know, what are your needs and. What's kind of the cheapest thing that'll get you by, right? Which is what I try to help people with, that we do, and other, I hope other companies, right? These requirements, because it's, I think they just think pain, right? It doesn't need to be crazy against. So yeah, that's. Any questions about that, the equipment or processing?
So really, the biggest reason I think most of the time it's good to have information, but it's better to save money. Right, and that's why I think a lot of times people are watching on Zoom or y'all are here too, right? It's, you're supporting each other, but when it comes down to it, your business and you want to save them. And like Shadow talked about before, it's understanding your customers. You know, recognizing what can I do to mitigate these costs and understanding those customers. You know, why at our mechanic shop that we had a diesel shop down in Texas. And most of our customers were, majority of them, you know, we rarely had a ticket that was under a few $100s, and then most of our customers were tax dots, school districts, stuff like that, just people we had contracts with. Well, they would not allow me to charge them that 3%, so I had to calculate it into the cost initially of what I was working on and the fields that we were putting in. Where going to some of these other stores and small retail shops, people, especially now, begin to expect that, right? You see it all the time. Used to at convenience stores, right? You'd see it before it was even legal to do, but they would have a little piece of paper there that said, you know, you can't use a credit or debit card unless you buy it for $5, right? And that was there a lot, which actually was for quite a few years was considered illegal. You weren't allowed to do surcharges. Until that got changed, because lobbyists with the credit card companies thought it would slow down the use of credit cards. But they want credit cards to be used. And statistically, most people use credit cards. When they use them, they found that they spend anywhere from about 3 to 7% more on a product than they would otherwise spend. Because it just, you don't feel it initially, right? And so there's a lot of research that's gone into that. It's one of the first major chains that ever did it was McDonald's. And when they did their tests on it, they found that most people spent upwards of 10% more when they were using a credit card just to buy McDonald's. And that's one reason why they're the ones who started the upsell, you know, we'll just go up to a large to be 20 cents more, right? Type of idea. That started through credit card processing and how they can tap on an extra percentage to get people to spend on that. So just understanding your customers to understand what kind of rates you can charge them is the kind of thing you'll do, whether it's surcharge, cash discounting, interchange, those things. It makes it work. We put on there co-ops and banks are not all the same, and the reason I put that there, I think a lot of times I've been a part of different associations or co-ops that do a lot of good. But a lot of times little parts of them, and I've done it, I've even done it with our chamber that we had back in Texas. There were different things that we would get. Oh, let's do the chamber. I'm getting this deal, right? Or through a co-op. So many times we've looked at it and we've given people rates. And what it amounts to is the co-op, even though they're a nonprofit, they end up getting a cut out of that. So the rates end up not being as good as you would think they would be, because they're advertising for that product, and so they end up getting a piece of that pie too. So it's not always as good. And then banks, one of the things that we've seen is we've gone and talked to people, and it's true everywhere. You can go to a bank and they'll tell you, hey, use this processor. This is who we suggest, right? All the banks here, you can go with that bank. None of the banks are their own processors. They're people that are contracted through the banks. And so feeling that you're beholden to the bank because you bank there, don't let that hold you there. Whether it's with us or any other processor, you're not getting some great deal because it's happens that you do the bank. It may be convenient because you're there filling out paperwork already, and so it just it's easy. But just because you're there doesn't mean you're going to get the best rates from the bank. They're typically, I've never seen a bank that wasn't processing themselves. I mean, even Wells Fargo, as large as Wells Fargo is, uses First Data as their processor. They don't, you know, they're worldwide, you know, so. Talked about before, asking for low rates, making that phone call and talking to somebody. Sometimes, there's things that are on flat rate, typically you can't get the budget on that. You're not on interchange plus or other things, but a lot of times you'd say, hey, I've got to get a lower rate, it's skill, what can we do? See if they can make some adjustments.
And it doesn't hurt to ask, like you said, we've seen it, and they don't want to lose you. You're their client, you're making them money, oh, well, what on real quick? Oh, I got you lower, they want you there, so don't, if you've been with the same guy for a couple of years, I would definitely ask, still. They'll change real quick, they'll get on the phone, make some changes.
Obviously, the optimal thing there is to not ask, and just call us, but that's up to you. The other thing is get the most out of your agent, you know, your time, you recognize, and it's one reason why people don't mess with credit card processing a lot. Is it's just one more thing to do, and it's already working, and I've factored it into my business, and I'm still able to. Play T-ball, make the mortgage payment, and everything's fine, so why bother, right? But the reality is that. Because you know what your time is worth, if you don't wanna mess with that, and you have questions about it. Well, you're able to tell them, hey, I'm trying to understand this better. Look into this for me and get back with me in layman's terms, right? And use them, right? That's what they're there for. The other thing is reading the fine print, you know, going through, you know, like in our contracts, it is standard boilerplate in our industry for it to be 3 years. And even our contracts are for 3 years, but one of the things that we do in ours is we don't put, there's no fee for getting out early. So because it's boilerplate, it's built into it already, but it doesn't cost anything to get out. Because we feel like if we're doing our job right, you won't have a reason to get out, so we're okay with that. And if we do something that you don't like, well, we should be able to part ways. I don't wanna be stuck with somebody I don't care for, right? Or don't like this service that I'm receiving, or whatever the case may be. So. These two PCI compliance and EMV compliance, PCI compliance, the PCI stands for credit card industry. This is something that. If you're familiar with, if you've done anything with scouts or some church organization or school organization or something, that you've got to take that, I don't know, it's 20-30 minute video, there's a bunch of different ones out there that make you child safe, right? Same idea for the credit card industry, all right? But it has to be done every year, you have to upload a document that shows that you took it, a little certificate and all those kind of things. And if not, every month on the bottom of your statement, there'll be a PCI compliance fee. And we have seen them range anywhere from about $25 to a few $100s a month to force people to be PCI compliant. And what it amounts to is you watch the video and say, okay, I understand that there can be fraud, I'm trying to avoid fraud, and those kind of things. And it will ask you, you're supposed to have, questions afterwards, do you have a written anti-fraud policy or things like that? Just nobody has one of those, right? I mean, who has an anti-fraud policy for that kind of thing, right? Well, and that's the nice thing, all the PCI compliance typically have a little button that you can click on, and it'll pop up and say, again, here's a boilerplate anti-fraud policy, you can download it and now you have one, right? So that it's not difficult, it's time consuming. You know, by the time you watch the video and go through the questions and upload stuff, it's an hour, give or take, right? And so people just don't do it, and every year it has to be done. And so, can't tell you the number of statements that you get that have PCI compliance fees, and they just add up.
And what it protects you from, so for an example, it protects you from fraud, so like disputes. So we were talking to somebody in Price and they did you with a sheet metal, so there's $8,000 worth of sheet metal. The guy came in and paid for it, when he disputed it, we got his $8,000 worth of sheet metal for free. And they called the bank, hey, this guy disputed it, let's get our money back. I said, well, are you PCI compliant? Well, no, what is that? I said, oh, we're letting them let you know about that. Well, there's SOL, you're $8,000 out, you know what I mean? And so they learned that the very hard way. And so now the front office lady, she does her PCI stuff every year like clockwork. So it pays to do it, it's just, but it is happening to me.
And unfortunately, there are unscrupulous people everywhere, right, who will come and get $8,000 worth of sheet metal and walk away. I think it's some guy who's not gonna fight on it, right? So it's unfortunate. The EMV compliance, and the EMV is just the Europay, MasterCard, Visa. What amounts to, there's some other fees that you'll see if you're not EMV compliant. And so just, it's a chip reader. Familiar with the little chips that you see on the cards now? there are still machines out there, people who have older machines that do not take EMV. And so when they don't take EMV, then again, it's just another layer of fraud. And trying to keep fraud from happening. And so if you don't, are EMV compliant, again, it's, you know, but if you have a reader that's a few years older or newer, the chances are, you know, and there are a few places that just have, for lack of a better word, enough money and push, you know, you go to Walmart, they don't have EMV compliant readers. But Walmart doesn't fit in the world of the rest of us.
It's a refresher. So Apple.
They actually go through with Visa, MasterCard and have their own contracts for that interchange version, I'm sure it's like Walmart.
You're on my government.
Yeah. And then another way to save money is, you know, to have us, we can analyze your statements and then y'all decide what you want to do with that, right? You know, or, you know, calling others and then seeing what it is, but there's lots of ways to go through your statements and just understanding that. And then recognizing whether or not your money's to be saved and what you do. So. Any questions?
One is, do you have a support thing for online payments or like the shopping integration? So like if they want to do like a system online, or people can do like bill pay online or shopping or like do you guys have that with yours?
Yeah, we do, we integrate that, we integrate with Shopify, you know, which is.
Oh, perfect.
Common one.
Yeah.
That people use for the online, but yeah, we've got, yeah, multiple platforms that if people want to have kind of an online presence.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, that was the question.
Well, that's all we had, we just thought, we didn't want to take too much time, I know it's been 40 minutes or so.
You're good.
I'm gonna go to sit here and listen to this, but thank you.
No, it was good information. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Oh, I guess one other question, do you do, municipalities, government? You had mentioned that you did contracts with like school districts and stuff like that,
Right,
so
that's good.
you're in the government. That field as well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, like, for example, we talked with, Mr. Atwood, or Zeke said, some cool guys like me, Zeke, so he does the finance stuff for the city. And we went to him, and we're like, hey, you know, cause again, it doesn't hurt to ask, right? And he was like, dude, this sounds really cool, I love doing, and we looked into it, and we can do business with, you know, municipal, right, the entire city, and so, yeah, we can do it with just about anybody, except the only things that you can't do.
Well, I mean, there's certain businesses that we can't do, you know, like places that do marijuana, pornography.
Yeah.
And there's those kind of stuff, that's not relatable to this.
Cities in those businesses.
Pawn shops, you can't do pawn shops, not because we can't do it, we could get them a card, but they're regulated by the state of Utah, but they have to use a particular processor and card reader, because they're looking, pawn shops just have a high rate of fraud, and so they can watch all that stuff go through their money laundering and stuff like that.
Do you guys have that protection for like small shops, like the fraud detector, stuff like that?
Yeah, so all the PCI compliance stuff, we help people get set up with, and I mean, they send you an email to say, here, do it, and there's quite a few people who will go through, you know, vendors who will do it themselves. But we have a handful of them, we're like, I don't even understand the jargon unless they come over here and help us. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. So,
That's sweet, that's great, great.
And you guys have an office here in Roosevelt?
we live in Altamont in our office.
Altamont, okay, but yeah, you're.
We're
local.
based here, yes. ma'am.
Okay, but in Texas too, you going back and forth or?
No, our business, we've got it's a different payment processor in Texas, just so
Okay.
it's Echo Payment Solutions in Texas. So, but yeah, it's yeah, we're moving, we've, other than a few businesses we've got down there, we've moved everything up here. This is where it felt like the good Lord wanted us, so here we are. So,
I was just.
Altamont,
You
you
what
got-
brought you to Altamont?
Yeah,
I don't know, y'all, there's Dave and Jamie Rust, I don't know if you knew them.
yeah.
Here. So, okay.
I've heard of them, yeah.
All right, so, they moved to South Texas, they have boys the same age as my two boys, about 10, 12 years ago now, he was in the oil field. And, we went to church together and got to know each other for about 5 years, and then they moved back, and we just kept in touch, and we were driving through, we have family in Springville, so the summer of 19, we were driving through. And we wanted to move, we had sold some businesses, and just with the school districts and stuff, we thought. He was gonna be a senior and his little brother was gonna be a freshman, like, we need to move. And we were looking up in the San Antonio, greater San Antonio region, it just never felt right. Just kept going and thinking, praying about it and stuff, and just never felt right. So we were driving here and they said, hey, we wanna talk, see the Rust boys, okay? And in my head, because we're going to Springville. Well, that's fine, everybody lives somewhere in that.
Oh, yeah.
Easy.
Easy.
There, so
No problem.
I didn't think about Utah for the most part, and so
Oh,
we
yeah.
called him and we were in Helper, and he says, we need to look for a road, Indian Canyon. I have on speakerphone, and my wife, hey, there's a sign right there, so we turned and we drove into Altamont, and my wife and I looked at each other and said, this feels right, I don't know why, this is where we need to be, so we, that was in June. By August, we'd sold everything and moved to Altamont. So it was a neat experience. It's been a lot of fun.
Really quiet, I'm sure.
So initially,
Yeah.
yeah, so the only thing for sale, we got up there and everybody, apparently the summer, the winter of 18 going into 19 was like a crazy winter for y'all. There was tons of snow and I was still working for a private equity firm, doing consulting and citizen businesses down there. And there was 2 places for selling out. There's a little motel right there on
Oh,
Main
yeah.
Street. And then there was a house, a cabin about a mile and a half out of town. And that was it. That was in that general area. And I thought, I can't move my family to this cabin. It snows, so I don't know anything about snow. Anyway, so we bought the motel and moved it in. So that's where we lived for the first 3 years, almost 4 years. And then we just moved north of the rodeo grounds. There's a house that came for sale there about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So we still have the motel. It's doing well, and I was surprised at how it stays busy all the time. And yeah, it's been good. So yeah, so that's how we got here, and even my 2 boys, surprisingly enough, we told them that day when we pulled in, we were at the bus house and said, hey, what do you think about this? I don't know, what do you think about this a little bit, we get back with this. Both of them, yeah, we're up for the adventure. Okay, which was,
That's awesome.
yeah, which was surprising, being that he was gonna be senior, the other was going into freshman.
So you graduated from Altamont? Huh?
Going from a class of about 500 to 600 to a class.
Oh, yeah.
Very different.
It's nice. I mean, I got married out here, and my sister, she got married, so I got kids, and.
Who did you marry?
Who? Oh, the Riri girl, Jade
Jade.
Riri.
Do you know Oakley's older sister Jade?
Okay, okay,
If you look at them, they don't look anything like siblings.
really?
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
she's a little blonde and Oakley's just brown hair.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And you don't have that itch to go back to a big city? You like Altamont?
No, I.
Yo, like get out of here.
You married someone from here. so
That's
you-
true, you're stuck forever, sorry.
You married someone from here, you stay here.
It's so true. It's so true. Go to Springville.
Yeah, you'll spend about maybe a year out there and you're.
And you'll be like, never mind.